You're on.
Welcome to part 2 of this 3-part video series on how to make fermented vegetables. I'm Tracy Long, a health and nutrition expert with Big Picture Health. In part 2, you're going to learn about it really is this easy. Cut up some cabbage, add some salt, and encourage the release of liquid. And let it sit and ferment. I'm also providing a PDF with this video series that lists additional information about supplies, where to get them, estimated costs, and the ingredients involved. When we look at the basic equipment that you need, a cutting board, a good knife, and a jar or a container or vessel to put the product in, really that's the basics. Some of this I'll cover a little later when we look more in depth at this. But I always start with my basic ingredients, and it's as simple really as cabbage and salt for your ingredients, with some options to add other items if you'd like to. So you want to get a head of cabbage, and I really prefer getting organic if it's available, or fresh from my local farmer's market. You want to start by washing the cabbage and removing the kind of wilted outside leaves. And then looking at knife safety skills, you want to make sure you have a good grip on, an overhand grip on your knife. And then we're going to go ahead and using the claw grasp with our other hand to avoid slicing off any fingertips. We're going to just cut through the cabbage. Cut it in half, and then we cut the halves into fourths. And then you can very easily just turn the cabbage up on its edge and use an angle to cut out the core. So that leaves you starting with a fourth that we're going to go ahead and lay on a flat edge and slice it. Your pieces of cabbage can be as big, and they can be big, small, or they can even be medium. And then I'm just going to chop through this a couple of times. And my large processing bowl is busy right now, so I actually just pulled out a big pot that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and start just sliding the cabbage into a pot. And to save time for the demonstration, I'm going to set this aside, and I got another batch going so I can kind of roll through this, but imagine that we cut the rest of this up and we put it in a bowl. So this white bowl has an entire head of cabbage in it. When I finished cutting it all up, it was really filled to the top. The next step in this process is to add a little bit of salt, and we really want to just add salt to taste. I always start with about 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of salt, so I just have a little teaspoon handy, and I already added a little salt to this earlier, so I'm going to add just another 1/2 teaspoon. And then what we want to do with the salt is really incorporate it into the vegetables, and so we want to start manipulating the cabbage the best way to do this is just get in with your hands. Some people like to use a dowel or the back of a wooden spoon, and we actually start just massaging and working that salt into the vegetable. We're actually bruising the tough outer cell structure of the vegetable so it begins to release its natural fluid, and we work the salt in to all of the pieces in here. Salt has some unique functions. It's primarily set up to pull water from the vegetables to help create a brine. It also will harden the pectin, so the sauerkraut or fermented vegetables end up being really crunchy. It can also help narrow the range of what can grow. So we're promoting the growth of positive microorganisms and discouraging the growth of negative ones by adding salt. Salt also slows fermentation in the summer and speeds it up in the winter. So I like to use a little less in the summer when it's warm and a little more in the winter when it's cool, just to get the process going a little faster. I'm really always careful about how much salt I add because I want the salt to be just tasty enough based on my personal preference, and it's so much easier to add extra salt than it is to take away too much salt. Really the only option when you add too much salt is to add more vegetables to disperse the saltiness just a little bit. And so you want to keep mixing this together. And this is it. This is our basic fermented cabbage. We're ready to go here. We do have options of adding other ingredients, so I have a plate here to the side to show you if I wanted to. This is an organic beet, so I wouldn't peel this one. I would just cut away the root, and I would use my box grater and grate this up a little. I really like to add a little bit of ginger, so this is about a thumb-sized piece of ginger that I have already peeled, and I can grate that. organic carrots, so I wouldn't bother peeling them. I would just wash them and go ahead and run them over my grater. And then here's some kale leaves, just a few of them that would add some nice color. Some caraway seeds might be another option. So as you become more familiar with fermenting your vegetables, you can start playing with and adding some fun flavors. So our vegetables are ready to go into our fermentation vessel, and so one head of cabbage that weighs between 2 and 3 pounds is really a nice size for a 1-quart canning jar. So I'm going to start by just picking up handfuls and stuffing them into the jar. I have canning jars on hand, but you can sometimes find them at garage sales, or you can go to your local hardware store and pick one up. But notice how I'm going to just keep packing this cabbage into the jar. And then I'm going to gradually even just push my fist down in there, and you can look at how much water was released from the cabbage. I didn't add any water. That all came right out of the vegetable. And I'm going to keep adding, filling this jar up to about 1 inch from the top. And I really want to keep the cabbage underneath that surface of water, because anytime the cabbage comes in contact with air, that's an aerobic condition, and that's going to allow for the growth of mold. So if I can keep all of the pieces of cabbage and vegetable underneath water, then we're going to have less likelihood of mold growth. Okay? So the next step then is to create an environment here that's anaerobic, and we can do that with a couple of different lid options. This is a product called a pickle pebble, and it's just a glass round that we can put inside and place it on top, and that's going to weight the vegetables down so they stay underneath the water, and we have less likelihood of that mold growth. And from there, you can see what I've done. These are 2 samples of my own sauerkraut. This is one that I made last week, and this was green cabbage, ginger, garlic, and some carrots, so you can notice that nice color. And this is another version that I made, and all this is green cabbage and some grated beet. So what I did here was I took a little jelly jar and filled it up with some rocks I got from outside, put a lid on it, and put this on top. This is what's holding the cabbage down in this environment. And I can just take a coffee filter and a rubber band and place that over the top so I can keep undesirable insects out of my ferment. This is another option where you can get a silicone one-way valve and put this on top. It seals the top, and there's a little hole in the top of this nipple that allows the carbon dioxide that's produced during the fermentation process to escape out, but it doesn't allow any air in, and so that also prevents growth of mold. So another option is to use something like this stone that I've placed. It's washed clean right on top, and then I can lightly spin a jar lid on top. I want the fermentation process to build up a little, so I don't want to make this really tight, but just a little tight. And if I'm using this type of lid that doesn't allow the carbon dioxide to escape, I want to just once a day, especially during the first 2 to 3 days and up to the first week, just spin this off and let a little gas escape, and then go ahead and tighten it back up again, letting that fermentation process go to work. So that's the basic method of getting your first sauerkraut or fermented vegetables started, and I really like showing you this display of these 3 really nice examples. So thanks for watching this quick demonstration. If you'd like to hear more, you can come back for part 3, where we'll talk about some troubleshooting and also some additional bonus resources if you're interested in starting fermenting in your own kitchen. Thank you.